everyone, my name is Linda, and today my group members and I will be doing our presentation on homeownership, affordable housing, and the Canadian Dream.
In a 2021 survey commissioned by Mogo Incorporated among members of the Angus Reid Forum, Canadians were asked what the most important aspect of the Canadian Dream was to them. The third largest choice selected was being able to buy a home. The survey also indicates that 65% of Canadians think most Canadians cannot achieve this dream. But what is the Canadian Dream? The Canadian Dream, although similar to the American Dream, is different for each stakeholder, whether it is people in real estate business, Canadian citizens, immigrants, or even the vast amount of refugees each year. That being said, it is also known amongst almost all groups of people that the housing market being stable is an absolute necessity. So it must be asked, what's the issue? Well, interviews conducted by the Toronto Star indicate that although Syrian refugee families in London, Ontario, Calgary, and Fredericton, New Brunswick are achieving strong social and economic gains, such as employment and social networks, the obscene inflation in the housing market means that the costs are outpacing their economic gains. This is just a small glance into a major issue, as it does not only affect newcomers. According to Statistics Canada, roughly 1.6 million Canadians are in core housing need, meaning they're living in inadequate homes that cost them more than 30% of their income. Simply put, there's a shortage of affordable homes due to an overwhelming demand and decreased supply in the housing market. It is without a doubt that the current housing crisis is a barrier holding everyone from achieving the Canadian Dream.
The primary claim that I will be addressing is that housing is essential to the fulfillment of the Canadian Dream. According to our research, owning a home is a critical aspect of the Canadian Dream, and access to affordable and quality housing is a fundamental right for all Canadians. The importance of housing goes beyond just providing shelter, it also contributes to social and economic stability. The evidence to support this claim is abundant. Home ownership rates in Canada are one of the highest in the world, with over 67% of Canadians owning their homes. Access to quality housing is essential for all Canadians to establish a stable and secure foundation for themselves and their families. Housing affordability has become a growing concern in Canada, particularly in major cities such as Vancouver and Toronto, where the cost of living is high. The lack of affordable housing has led to issues such as homelessness and poverty, which has adverse impact on the social and economic stability of individuals and communities. While there is overwhelming evidence to support our claim, some may argue that home ownership is not the only way to fulfill the Canadian Dream. They may argue that there are other ways to achieve financial stability and provide a better life for oneself and their family. Additionally, they may argue that the focus of home ownership has led to the commodification of housing, which has contributed to the affordability crisis. However, we must also consider that the access to quality and affordable housing is a fundamental right, and housing is an essential element of social and economic stability. In conclusion, access to quality and affordable housing is essential to fulfill the Canadian Dream. It contributes to social and economic stability and provides a foundation for individuals and families to thrive and is the fundamental right. While there may be other ways to achieve the Canadian Dream, home ownership remains a critical component of this vision. It is crucial for policymakers, real estate agents, and the developers to work together to ensure that all Canadians have access to affordable and quality housing.
Quality housing is increasing in the major areas of Canada. According to Statistics Canada, Ontario's Housing Price Index, which measures the relative price of single-family homes, has risen an astonishing 27.3% since the baseline year of 2016. During that same 6-year period, average rent rose almost 35%. This means that although home ownership can still be inferred to be more cost-effective in the long term than renting, the economic burden of renting in the interim is causing greater and greater difficulties in achieving that long-term goal. Pointed when considering this dilemma is that short-term rental companies like Airbnb. Airbnb's commercial hosts have long been accused of buying up rental properties and taking them off the long-term rental market. After all, if a unit is registered as a short-term unit, it cannot also be registered as a long-term rental. Commercial hosts managed 42% of Airbnb's Toronto listings in 2019, making it more difficult to find housing in a city where the rental vacancy is already at a minuscule 1.1%. And this has the added effect of ballooning the cost of already existing long-term rentals. The reason that is often attributed includes factors that are resulted from the general economic environment that the renters live in. Inflation has exploded over the past couple of years, and additions to controls for mortgage eligibility have made it more and more difficult for buyers to access funding in order to purchase homes, with the average household income increasing only 38% over the past 10 years. The HPI in 2013 was 89.4, resulting in an increase of almost 42.4% when compared to the 2022 measurement. Under current market conditions, it would take 26.5 years for the average Toronto resident to save enough money to afford a down payment on the average home in the city.
With the state of the Canadian housing that is in right now, it is evident that supporting Canadians to find quality housing is essential for Canadian society. Providing quality housing has a variety of benefits that will greatly benefit our society in many ways. There are many reasons why housing is unaffordable, some that were stated before such as Airbnbs, inflation, etc. However, the biggest reason is supply. There is simply a lower number of houses than the amount needed for the Canadian population. By increasing the supply, housing will become more affordable for everyone. Within a particular year, Canada constructs around 200,000 new homes, including condos, houses, and other similar types of homes. While there was an increase in the past few years, it is still not enough to resolve affordability challenges. To keep up with the housing demands, Canada will need to double the amount of homes being built over the next decade. As mentioned before, over 67% of the Canadians own their own home. However, this number has been on the decline in the past few years after hitting its peak around 2011. Every Canadian citizen needs a place to call home. A home isn't just a roof over their head, it is also the source of security, identity, and dignity. A study done in 2019 focused on the topic of unstable housing for children and the negative effects it had on child's physical, mental, developmental, and social health. The study showed that children living in inadequate and crowded homes exhibit negative behaviors such as lower school performance, aggressive behaviors, physical health issues, and an overall diminished health status. Unstable housing has also had a very heavy impact on the healthcare system, both directly and indirectly. The significant health effects that result from unstable housing increase the demand on the healthcare system, further worsening the problem. A study done at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario showed that around 54% of the children using the Emergency Services Department lived in housing need. The youth of today are the future of Canadian society, which is why it is so important to provide them with a safe and stable home, making affordable housing one of the most important goals for Canadian society.
So, in conclusion, home ownership and affordable housing are crucial components of the Canadian dream. However, the issue of expensive housing has presented significant challenges for many Canadians in achieving this dream. Through our research and learning, I have come to appreciate the complexity of this issue and recognize that there are no easy solutions. For starters, we have learned that the problem in expensive housing is not solely a matter of supply and demand, but also involves systematic issues such as income inequality, lack of government intervention, and speculative investment. We have also become more aware of the diverse views and interests of different stakeholders involved, including homeowners, renters, developers, government officials, and advocacy groups. As per my views, while I initially believed that the market would eventually correct itself, we now realize that a more comprehensive and collaborative approach is needed to address this issue. I personally agree with the stakeholders who advocate for government intervention through measures such as affordable housing policies, taxation on speculative investment, and increased support for renters. We also appreciate the need to balance these measures with incentives for developers and their importance for preserving the right of homeowners.